Hello and welcome to Mary's Eclectic Interests. My name is Sue Ellen Zagrabelny and I'll be your host today. Our guest is graphic artist and comic book creator Kristin Tipping. Welcome, Kristin.
Hello, glad to be here.
Kristin, would you take a moment to tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to comic book and graphic novel creation?
Okay, well, I'm a Minneapolis local. I have a master's degree from MCAD.
And what's MCAD?
MCAD is Minneapolis College of Art and Design.
Okay.
Yes. I would say I didn't start making comics, at least not in a serious way, until actually fairly far on in my college career, because I had been drawing and sort of doing the, I had been like doing illustration and drawing since like childhood, like every other person, but I struggled a lot with the writing aspect of things, and I just sort of felt like I couldn't do it for a long time. I actually kind of got into making comics almost by accident, because my first like comics that I made that I really liked was actually part of a different assignment when I was in college for like a graphic design class. And I sort of like just made this like as part of that assignment, and then kind of realized, oh, I can write something that I don't completely hate, and then kind of just continued to do it from there. Yeah.
Okay. Without giving away too much, you've brought 3 of your comics today with you. And could you tell us a little bit about, let's take this first one, How to Human.
Okay, yeah, well, we'll start with the short one. So How to Human, it's based largely on my own experiences, like almost word for word in a few places, but it can sort of be, I think, read as a metaphor for like almost any sort of non-neurotypical experience, because it's about this like young woman who's like who like can't quite get her life together, and she finds this self-help book that basically tells her your problem is actually that you're just not human.
Oh dear.
And it's a book on basically how to pass as human and just sort of simulate what a human would do in these situations. What is the correct response?
Okay.
Yeah, and it sort of mirrors, and like I'm not literally not human, or am I? But it's sort of like mirrors my sort of own experiences with sort of self-help books and that type of advice that you often get, to just sort of fake it till you make it, and how it's actually, in a lot of cases, just ended up making me feel more alienated, even when it works, because I was never really interacting with people in an earnest way. So I felt like nobody was ever really talking to me. They're just talking to this simulacrum of a person that I had created.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's an interesting take on how to, on self-help, because some of it is telling you, like you said, fake it to make it.
Mm-hmm.
It can make it harder, and that's what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, and to some extent you do have to fake it till you make it, but I think often that is taken to an unhealthy place or used in an unhealthy way. Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about the next book. Which one would you like to talk about? The Bedtime Stories for Strangers,
yeah.
or Evil Witch Allie?
Let's do Bedtime Stories first.
So tell me about this second book, Bedtime Stories for Strangers.
So Bedtime Stories for Strangers is a collection of like short, sort of like fantasy and surreal comics that I've done. It started out as a webcomic, and this is like a collection of some of the comics from the webcomic, but with a special bonus comic added that is only available in the print version.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I notice on the cover there's a fish, and I don't know what the other thing is that's hiding
It's
in the cover.
A woman, but only her hair is visible.
Oh.
Yeah.
Fish and a woman.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like it's going to be some interesting reading. Can you tell us any more about the stories without giving away too much about it?
Well, most of them are pretty short, so that's might be a bit hard.
Okay.
But yeah, it's sort of a lot of it. It's pretty, I would say, similar in like tone and content to like How to Human. Sort of like stories where fantastical things are happening, but they're kind of like they're sort of based in something that's sort of relatable a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're
or they're what?
Or they're like completely in a fantasy world, a couple of them, but I still think they have like I would like to think that they all like are based around some sort of emotional thing that's relatable.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
It sounds, just looking at the cover, it sounds like something I would like to read. That's cool. Evil Witch Allie. Tell us about Evil Witch Allie and the Black Hole. WHOLE.
Yes. Okay. So Evil Witch Allie in the Black Hole, or Evil Witch Allie and the Black Hole, is the first volume in a sort of ongoing series. It's a webcomic first, and then I'm sort of collecting the volumes as they get finished. So as of right now, the webcomic is about 20 pages into the second volume. I'm going to try not to spoil anything in the first volume, because I've done that in previous interviews and gotten yelled at about it. So the first volume is sort of, and the whole series, but I think the first volume especially, is like focuses on this boy named Jake, and he is very afraid of this bog that is near his house for reasons that become increasingly clear over the course of the story.
Okay.
And he also has a crush on the boy next door, but is too afraid to talk to him. So on Halloween night, Jake finds this little girl named Allie sort of alone outside his house, and she's wearing a witch hat, but is otherwise not dressed like a witch.
Okay.
But claims to be able to be a real witch who can use real magic, which he is dubious about. And through the course of him like trying to figure out like who she is, like who are her parents, like how did she, like trying to get her home basically, he is sort of forced to like confront both his fears of like the Vogue and of talking to his crush, and neither of them goes super the way he would like them to. But
Yeah, well, don't tell too much more then.
I won't tell you anything more. Okay.
Oh, good. Oh, good. I was wondering, is your writing a place to have an alter ego?
Not really.
Then what pulls it for you? What pulls you into the writing?
I don't know. The writing, honestly, it's still kind of, it's the hard part, because once I have everything written, I basically just have to, once everything is written, I just have to draw it. And drawing, like, once I know what I want to do, it's sort of just following through on that. And the writing is all of the decision-making parts of it. And then the drawing is just sort of following through on that once I've decided everything. So I think like I don't know.
Well, I guess I was asking that. No is as good an answer as yes. But what I'm hearing you say is that the writing part is the place that it starts. Is that right?
Yeah.
And the illustration happens later?
Well, I'll sort of know certain images, or I think part of the reason writing, well, no, I'll sort of know often what I want things to look like, or I'll have certain sequences in my head, but those, like, an image isn't a, like, but that's not the story. This, and if you just have, you can draw a lot of really cool images, but they won't necessarily come together to make a good story. The most of the work is really, for me at least, is kind of in figuring out the story and making sure that it's kind of structured correctly, and the audience is getting all of the right information at the right times. And yeah.
Okay. Okay. Why don't you follow the superhero trend?
So I think superheroes are kind of what people who don't read comics think comics is.
Okay.
But yeah, they're not really as, I mean, they're still incredibly prevalent in mainstream comics. I actually haven't read a ton of superhero comics, which is kind of unfortunate. It's kind of a big hole in my overall comics knowledge. But yeah, I actually I got into comics like when I was sort of a kid and through high school. I kind of was coming of age around the time of both when webcomics were starting to be a thing and during the big anime manga boom. So those were sort of the things that got me into comics, were reading webcomics and reading manga. And then as I got older, I've kind of gotten more into like the sort of indie comics scene as well. But yeah, I guess it's just my influences aren't superhero comics.
Okay. Why self-publishing?
It was kind of just the most convenient thing at the time, especially for like for the like short, like mini comics and zines. It's much easier to just publish them instead of like I don't know how you would even if it's like gets super short. Like I don't even know that there are publishers that tend to publish things of that length.
Okay.
So it kind of depends on what you're doing as well. For the Evil Witch Allie, I actually am looking into maybe trying to find a publisher for the first volume. At the moment, it's self-published. But yeah, I think it started out as a webcomic that I was just kind of doing to, I guess, get my name out there. And when I like had a graphic novel's worth of story, it was it's like I could shop this around for a long time, or I could just print it now and take it to cons, and that's what I did.
Okay. And cons are?
Conventions.
Comic conventions,
Yeah.
right? Okay. Because for our viewers who might not be in the know, that's nice to know. What are the pros and cons of online publishing, do you see?
Well, online, I think you have more control. You're not sort of beholden to a publisher. I think the main con is that it's very hard to make any money that way. And you tend to, it frequently takes years of doing it and not making any money to get to the point where you've built an audience big enough that you actually can make money off of it.
Okay.
But yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know a whole lot about online publishing, so it's interesting to get that perspective. Do you have any advice for other comic or graphic novelists?
I think I would say just make something. Like a lot of people, I think one of my biggest regrets was that I sort of didn't start making comics sooner or writing sooner, because when I was like in middle school and high school and even in grade school, I think one of my biggest problems was that I knew how bad my writing was. Because I knew people who were like writing, who were like making comics and writing like fan fiction and original fiction and all of that in high school, and they were their work was very bad, but they didn't realize it.
And they put it out there?
Yeah, and they had like this, some of them even had like this insane confidence about it. And I would like write something, and I'd feel like, well, that was terrible, and I guess I'm just bad at this. I should never do it again. And like I didn't realize that like you're not supposed to be good immediately. Like the people I actually like, I was the one who was playing myself, because the people who were writing all of the bad fan fiction, they were actually getting practice writing. And maybe they're very embarrassed about that now, or maybe they're not, but they actually were making a thing and I was not.
So it's make something is the advice.
Like, you get better, you get good at making comics by making comics. You have to make a lot of bad comics before you can make a good comic.
What else do you enjoy creating in your studio? Do you do other kinds of work?
Well, I do illustration work. I do a lot of pet portraits for people, actually, because I enjoy drawing animals. But yeah, it's mostly like comics illustration type of stuff.
Cool. Do you have web addresses that you could share with our viewers?
Okay, so my portfolio site is Kristin Tipping illustration.com. Kristin is spelled Kristin, and Tipping is spelled like tipping a waiter. There's also a separate website for Evil Witch Allie, the webcomic, and that is evilwitchallie.com. It's all one word. Allie is spelled Allie. Yeah.
Well, that's excellent. That you've reached out that way to get your work out there. Before we sign off, is there anything else you'd like to add for our viewers?
Not really.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, no, that's all right. Well, we're at the end of our time. Thank you, Kristin Tipping, for joining us at Mary's Eclectic Interest. And we look forward to seeing you next time on Mary's Eclectic Interests.
What makes your community feel like home? Is it knowing what's happening in your neighborhood? Or when people know your name? Connections make us a community. For more than 30 years, Northwest Community Television has connected citizens, neighbors, even sports fans through video. You can learn about the latest news through our truly local newscast. We cover and air around 150 high school sporting events every year. For our cities, we air parades and city meetings that you can watch whenever you want. Then, any citizen of our cities can create and share their own original content. We'll even teach you how to use the equipment too. We have always provided you with a connected community experience, and as life gets busier than ever, we will continue to engage, inform, and inspire through CCX Media, so you can stay connected to the place